What's up guys, it's Rowan here from Smart TV. In this video, you're going to learn how as a teenager in school or still at university, you can start your first business. I'm going to share with you some of the principles that I've used in starting businesses myself, and I'm going to share with you principles like the Circle of Competence, eat your own dog food, model success, and feedback first. So let's jump in and find out. So I started my first business when I was 18 years old. I'd just finished high school, I was in first year of university, and a good friend of mine identified that there was an opportunity to import from China these little rechargeable torches. And so you'd wind it up, you wouldn't need a battery, and it would shed light. And we thought, what, these are all the rage in China, we're gonna bring them into Australia. And that was our business. And we went all in, we quit our jobs, we put all our savings or whatever we had, which was very little, into this business. Now, it failed, right? And it failed for a number of different reasons. But since then, one, I learned so many lessons from that experience. But two, I've started and sold multiple businesses along the journey, and I've mentored countless high school students, university, and beyond in terms of friends and family that have been starting and building their own businesses. And so, what I'm going to share is certainly based on my own experiences, but also the experiences of what I've seen work really well if you're young, you're a high school student, you're a university student, and what you need to do when you're young to actually start your first business. So the first principle is to actually eat your own dog food. And Warren Buffett, the famous investor, has an idea known as the Circle of Competence. When he's making an investment, trying to pick a successful business is so incredibly hard. And so as a result, he'll only invest in businesses that are within his circle of competence. So in other words, he'll only pick and invest businesses in an area that he knows and understands really, really well. And that's because it's so difficult. So when you're starting your first business, you want to sit and focus in something that you know really, really well. Because what it's going to give you is something called informational advantage. Informational advantage is that because of your lived experience or your work experience, you've got some form of information and knowledge that gives you an advantage over others in creating your business or product. And that's really important because creating a business is really hard and challenging. So if you don't have some sort of advantage, so to speak, it's going to be difficult to do it well. Now, if you look at famous teenage entrepreneurs, you'll discover that their businesses all tend to focus in a really clear informational advantage that's limited based on their circle of competence and the experiences that they've had in life. So for example, it could be babysitting, it could be buying and selling shoes, it could be drones, it could be app design. Right? So if you look at these really successful teenage entrepreneurs and their businesses, they all fall in those sorts of categories, and they're categories that are experiences that as a teenager they clearly would have had and experienced. So because, at the moment as a teenager your life experience is probably fairly limited, your circle of competence will be a little smaller than maybe someone that's older and has done more. That's okay. It's just what you need to do then is make sure that you pick something that's in that circle of competence, right? So do something that you know and love really well. Because if you do this, you can then eat your own dog food. And that idea is just simple. It means that you know the problem really well. So if you create a product or a solution, you can use it yourself, and you're actually going to be able to give yourself hopefully more effective feedback on what needs to change and improve than if it was something that you didn't know very well, that you hadn't experienced yourself, and so you were completely in the dark as you were actually building that solution or service. So remember, you want to pick something in your circle of competence that'll give you an informational advantage, and ideally it's something that you've experienced yourself, because then you can eat your own dog food. So the next principle is feedback first and then build. One of the biggest mistakes that I've made, but I see so many students and entrepreneurs, any age of life make, is that they get a brilliant idea, or so they think, right, for a business. And then what they do is instead of going in and actually getting feedback on it first, they jump straight into building it. So they maybe quit their job, they start their company and they start working on the product and they build this amazing product, and then they finally, have the big launch, and they launch it and then no one buys it. Right? And so all that work, quitting the job, everything has all been for waste because they didn't get that feedback earlier on. If they had that feedback from customers earlier, from like day one, they might have either A, not started the business because it was actually a crappy idea, or two, they might have been able to iterate and tweak and change, the product or the solution they were developing. So, my second principle here for you as a teenager starting a business is, when you have your idea, awesome, right? Like, that's fantastic, but don't start building straight away. And what I want you to do is, I want you to go, who is my customer for this, right? So who has the problem that I believe I'm trying to solve here, right? Who has that problem? Hopefully, if you've listened to principle number 1, eat your own dog food, you're that customer and you know lots of people like you that have that problem. But what I want you to do is, I want you to go and speak to that customer first before you build anything. And I don't want you to pitch them, right? I don't want you to pitch them with an idea of, what you think your amazing solution is. I want you to just ask them, right, relating to the area that you're interested in, what their major problems are. You want to actually find out, is it just your own problem that you have, or is that a problem that's shared more broadly? And then you want to hear what they say about the problem, and then you want to ask them to design a solution, to say, hey, if you could design, dream world, you had everything you needed, you could design the ideal solution, what would that look like? And they'll tell you, well, it'd be great if it could do this, and it could do this, and it could do this. And that's when you're getting the feedback before you build the product. Now, you've actually been told by your customer, right, by your audience, what they want and what you need to build to actually satisfy that problem in a way that will, that they'll actually pay for. So really, really critically, feedback first, right? Don't go and build something and then get feedback. Do the opposite. Go and find people that have the problem and ask them what their experience is, what their problems are, and what their designed solution could be. So that's the second principle. So the third strategy that you as a teenager could use to start your first business is to model success. Now, there's two ways that you could actually model success. And the first way is, if you're starting a business and there's, a similar one around, like what you're wanting to do, go and do a whole lot of research about it, right? Deconstruct, what makes it work, what makes it successful, what's made it tick, so that you can use it as a bit of a blueprint, right? Because the idea, Tony Robbins always says it, success leaves clues, right? So a successful business in the space is going to leave clues about what you might need to do. Now, it doesn't always need to be a business that's in the same country as you. As an example, one of the first businesses I started was an organisation called Uni Australia, and it was a trip advisor for Australian universities. We crowdsourced tens of thousands of reviews and ratings on Australian universities and put it onto a website so that you could basically, like reviewing some accommodation or something you were going to attend, you could see all the reviews for uni. Now, to be fair, right, this was not a new idea. There were a bunch of companies that had done this over in the United States before. It wasn't yet really in Australia. So we looked and reverse engineered how these companies in the US had done it, and then brought those learnings to Australia to improve what we were doing here. So super simple, that's the first way you can model success. The second way you can model success is to find a mentor, right? It doesn't have to be modeling success directly in the business that you're doing, but it could be modeling success in terms of, the type of person or entrepreneur that you may want to be. So what you could do is look at, okay, this is the sort of business that I'm wanting to create. Who's someone that's run something similar, in, my local area, in my state, in my country, that I could actually, one, study and get to know, but secondly, then reach out and have a conversation with to see if you can also learn something from them. So modeling success, two simple ways, find a similar business, learn everything about it, reverse engineer it, understand what makes it tick, and to find another successful entrepreneur, either in a similar space or, with similar businesses or skills that you could learn from, either from afar or from getting up close and getting to know them. So guys, that is it. There are my three simple tips if you're a teenager wanting to start your first business. The first tip, remember, is to eat your own dog food, to pick something in your circle of competence. The second tip is to always get feedback first. Don't build your product, then get feedback, then build your product. Flip it around. And the third and final one is model success. Really, really simple. So if you have any questions about starting your first business, leave it in the comments below. I'd love to help. I'm really passionate about young entrepreneurs who are, trying to start their first business. So leave a comment below, and if I can help, I will do my best to answer your questions. And of course, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. You know the drill. I bring videos to you every single week. So I will see you next week.